Once again, we're dealing with article and no article, and today we're focusing on abstract nouns like education, power, knowledge, pleasure, and experience. Although there are many other abstract nouns which are both countable and uncountable. I think more or less all of them are countable and uncountable. So understanding the different meanings between education and an education, power and a power, knowledge and a knowledge is quite important for getting these articles correct. And this is why people say you feel them, because you have to feel if they're countable or uncountable. So look at some of these sentences. Education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. We've got no article here and no article here because we're speaking about the process of education, the concept of education. We're not speaking about the process that somebody goes through at school in particular, specifically. It could be the process of education at university, but here you should notice anyway that the guy who said this, his name's John Dewey, he's had a lot to do with education. I'm not actually sure what, being honest. He's an American guy, don't know much about him, but I agree with this. He's saying that education is something that happens all the way through your life. It doesn't just stop at the end of school. It doesn't just stop at the end of university. And so you can see how he's using the word education to mean some kind of process which is always going on. A very abstract process, very intangible. Very hard to define exactly what he means. Whereas, have a look at part B. He had a private education. I'd say that this is very clear what you mean here. You mean an education in a private school. So his education was paid for. Here you're using a countable form of education because firstly it's one form of education among many. You have a state school education, a private education, a boarding school education, a university education, a single-sexed school education. There's lots of different types of education, and this is just one of many, and we're only talking about that particular process. We're not talking about the process of education in general, and that's why we often say uncountable nouns in a general sense. It is very general, and you can see that this first quote is very general. We're talking about education throughout someone's whole life. Okay, have a look at the next one, which is power. Ambition is the immoderate desire for power. Now here we mean power in a very general, intangible sense. We mean like dominance. We mean power over others, and the person who said this was defining the quality of ambition, and he didn't use an article for ambition, notice, either. He didn't say the ambition or an ambition. He just means ambition in general is defined as the immoderate desire for power, and here he means power in general, not a particular kind of power. If we look at B, when Newton said, "My powers are ordinary, only my application brings me success," he really means my skills. And skills is a very countable word. My capabilities, my skills. And his capabilities are very countable. His skills are very countable. He's not talking about power in a general sense, meaning power over others, dominance over others. So in one sense, power can be uncountable, if we're talking in a very general sense, but if we're talking about your skills or capabilities, it becomes countable. Let's have a look at knowledge. Doubt grows with knowledge. Here, Goethe was talking about any kind of doubt, just the idea of doubt, the concept of doubt, the idea of doubt grows with knowledge. Just he's talking about an ideal concept of knowledge here. He's not talking about a specific kind or type of knowledge. So we make knowledge kind of countable here when we say he has a wide knowledge of painting, or at least it's singular, and you'll very often see countable knowledge in that expression, a knowledge of. He has a knowledge of this, a knowledge of that. Most of the time it's uncountable. Most of the time. Okay, looking at pleasure. Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. This was Aristotle, and he was talking about pleasure in general. Any kind of pleasure, just the idea of pleasure, the feeling of pleasure. And notice he didn't use an article here with perfection. He's talking about perfection in a general ideal sense. However, it becomes countable in this very existential clause, you might notice, but it has been a pleasure to meet you. Yeah, here it becomes countable because we're talking about the experience of meeting someone, and an experience of meeting someone is very countable. It's not we'll compare it in a second to these two sentences, but certainly with an experience, if an experience is a pleasure, we would say a pleasure. We'd only really use pleasure uncountably when we're talking about pleasure in an ideal sense. Maybe you can talk about pleasure and pain. Perhaps pleasure and pain are the motives behind most human actions, or the reasons, the main determiners behind our actions. Then we'd be talking about pleasure and pain generally, not a pleasurable experience or a painful experience. Okay, on to the last one, which is experience. He has lots of experience with computers. This is uncountable. Yeah, when you're talking about work experience, it's very uncountable. And so if you're talking about experience in a company or experience doing something, you're talking about the knowledge and skills that you've picked up there. Certainly you use experience uncountably. But if we say, I went to the new theme park yesterday and it was a wonderful experience. Notice again, very, very existential clause. But we're talking about one pleasurable experience again, just like it was a pleasure to meet you. And in that sense, experience is countable when we're saying that the event was wonderful. Okay, now I hope that's clear. If there's anything that you don't understand about abstract nouns, countable, uncountable, please put them under the video. I try and do my best to answer all relevant questions, especially good questions, because I do like I think a good question can really help us all understand all of these very complicated topics much better. So thanks for watching. Please put a like under the video if you've enjoyed this, and I hope to see you all soon.